Somewhere deep in the hills of Puerto Rico lie some of our most precious gifts. You see, one thing about this gift we decide to share with the world, we are willing to understand every part about this gift. Welcome to Ayuntes, Puerto Rico. Today's mission is to understand exactly where our coffee is coming from. Welcome to Clemente's Café.
Of the Bourbon variety, which is one of the oldest varieties.
Wow, that tree is crazy. This is like some Avatar shit, man. This is crazy.
There used to be a lot more of these trees in Puerto Rico. Now they're pretty rare, but they're protected. But these are the coffee beans themselves right here. So you see how they make little bunches like that.
Yeah. Wow.
On different types of hybrid trees, these bunches may be closer together, so there's more of them, and just a lot more cherries on every bunch. So again, that's just maximizing the land.
So the variety of coffee we saw before was a type of an Arabica coffee tree. What you're looking at now is Excelsa, which is basically the very little known third variety. So the two main species of coffee are Arabica and Robusta. The difference between more conventional like monocrop agriculture versus like agroforestry. Like when you walk around here, you barely feel like you're in a farm. You feel like you're in a jungle.
It feels more jungly for sure.
And so that's not only good for the quality of the coffee, but the longevity and the health of the land.
Right.
And all the biodiversity, whether it be birds, bees, insects, small animals.
Yeah, because that dampness too, in the air is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like
yeah,
a little
it's
mist
cool,
type feel is not that bad. It's not like uncomfortable.
No. Yeah, it's much cooler up in the mountains. Yeah, these are looking super nice and healthy. You can see all the branches.
At what form is this now?
What was that?
At what stage is it at right now?
So it already flowered. It started, the bud. You can see all the stages actually still. So you can see this is the little bud.
Yeah.
This is when it starts to grow, and now it's almost fully formed. And now it'll continue to accumulate acids and sugars and oils or fats, and it'll eventually get red and ripe, and that's when it's ready to pick. So these are getting close. These maybe by August or September will be ready.
Okay.
So that's another reason why it's so challenging and costly to do specialty coffee, because with commercial coffee you can just shake down the trees and you get everything, but if you want to do specialty coffee you have to only pick the ripe cherries.
Wow.
And you can see even on one tree you have all different stages of ripeness. So when this is ripe, these guys still aren't going to be ready. These smaller ones aren't going to be ready. So you need skilled, experienced pickers to go in and only pick the ripe ones and not mess up the ones that aren't quite ready yet. And obviously that's a lot more expensive to do than to just strip everything off by hand. This is a field of Arabica. This variety is mostly Bourbon and Caturra. And this is an example of agroforestry in a way, because this field is like what you would call green buffered, meaning this field is buffered on 3 of 4 sides by the forest. So, for example, this versus a more commercial monocropped coffee field, and in a monocrop you have a disease in one field and it can spread and destroy the whole farm. In this case, if there's some sort of pest or insect or disease and it starts here, it could be managed here without spreading to the rest of the farm. This forest acts as like a literal wall for like different insects and pests and whatnot.
Did you guys do this purposely, like cut out here? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Dang, that's smooth. And which coffee is this one? This is the Arabica?
Yeah, so there's, like we were saying, there's some main species or families of coffee. You have Arabica, Robusta, Liberica.
Yeah.
Then within each of those species, there's different varieties.
Okay.
So within the species of Arabica, there's Bourbon, Caturra, Catoai, all these different varieties. And same thing like in the family of Liberica, you have Excelsa, which is the variety we saw over there.
Okay.
And it's similar to wine, how you have all different types of wine grapes. Same thing you have with coffee.
Okay. Understood. That's fire, man. I grew up my grandfather was a farmer. I hated going on the fields, bro. It was like always hot and just.
Yep. So this is the nursery. It doesn't look like a typical nursery coffee nursery that you would go to. And that's because it's basically an experimentation center for us as well. This nursery is 100% organic. We don't use any sort of herbicides, pesticides, even synthetic fertilizers. And we're growing like Típica, which is this almost abandoned and totally forgotten variety that no one grows in Puerto Rico anymore because of how difficult it is to grow. So we're playing life on hard mode in the nursery. We're not going to be able to compete with these bigger countries like Brazil and Vietnam and Colombia and whatnot. The only way that we can really survive and have an industry that supports small farmers staying on their land is to focus on specialty, higher end coffee.
Okay.
And so we chose this as just an extreme example. We're going to pick, the most difficult to grow variety, and we're going to do it in the most difficult way possible, which is doing it totally organic, agroforestry, and so that's what we're doing here.
Well, the good thing about that is having that rarity, it's one thing to try to grow something hard that everyone else is growing, then it's kind of like you kind of fighting with sharks versus growing something that's going to stand out that others aren't growing. So it gives it that, that special uniqueness for sure.
Yeah.
This is dope, bro.
All these trees are going out to farmers totally for free. So these are the new trees here. The other side, these trees are ready to go out. Yep, so the minimum commitment is 500 trees for each farmer.
Wow, this is dope, bro.
So the taller, healthier ones we go through, and these go out to the field.
How many trees per farm?
The minimum commitment is 500, maximum 3,600. And most farmers are taking around 500 to 1,500. The maximum they can take at a time is 3,600.
Yeah.
And we do that,
That's the first stage right there, in the black bags?
The little ones, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if we have some very little ones. Yeah, here.
Okay, so these are the first stage trees.
So before they start growing these like pointy ones that look more like a coffee tree, the first set of leaves are actually round. So like this.
Yeah.
That's how they first look when they're just coming up.
Okay.
And then after that, then you can see here the second set. So this is the first set of leaves that came up, the round ones.
Yeah.
Then the second set is those pointy ones, and those are the ones that look more like an actual mature tree.
Cool thing about, especially understanding more of what's going on with Puerto Rico and the coffee, is one of the main slogans I was going with is bringing the island to your cup. So I think it's cool to actually really bring something that's like rare of Puerto Rico to other people versus slapping a name on something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and where do you think Puerto Rico ranks like right now with coffee?
In what regard? I mean, right now we produce very, very little coffee.
Yeah.
Not even to to fill the demand of just Puerto Rico. So we produce very little. We have the potential to grow some of the best coffee in the world, and we've proven that over the last few years. Some of the high scores of coffees we've gotten, different competitions and places around the world that we've gone to bring our coffee. So the potential is there. And like I was saying, we definitely want to grow the industry, but the ultimate goal isn't just bigger yields and that kind of stuff, because there's a bunch of other countries that can do that. Vietnam, Brazil, Colombia, Honduras, all these countries, they can already produce way more quantity of coffee than we can. Yeah. And they can do it cheaper than we can.
Really?
So in Puerto Rico, if we want to have an industry here, really, we think at Bosque, we think the focus should be on better practices for the environment, better practices for the end cup of coffee. And there's a huge market for coffee around the world. We don't need to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Puerto Rican coffee doesn't need to be at every gas station.
Facts. Yeah.
It's actually a gigantic market, and we need such a small percentage of it to have a great industry
just to be cool.
here.
Right. Do you think like the hurricanes that we have, and you think that's like a huge setback, or that's something to get over with? get over with?
It's definitely a challenge of doing coffee or any type of agriculture in Puerto Rico.
We see a potential future for farmers and for coffee in Puerto Rico where we have a small but very vibrant coffee economy in Puerto Rico. Today, the coffee economy in Puerto Rico is mostly based on coffee that isn't Puerto Rican. So most of the coffee that is consumed and distributed in Puerto Rico is either blended or entirely imported coffee. And Puerto Rican farmers aren't a major part of the equation in the local economy for coffee.
Is it illegal for them to do that? You just slap made in Puerto Rico in there?
So the government is the main importer of coffee to Puerto Rico, and most of the different labels and whatnot out there, like Hecho en Puerto Rico or Cosecha Boricua, can be kind of misleading. So when you go to a supermarket and you see something that says Hecho en Puerto Rico, you might assume that it's Puerto Rican coffee, but it actually doesn't mean that at all.
Wow.
So it could be 100% imported coffee, and as long as it was roasted or packaged here and some sort of value was added to it here,
Puerto Rico. That's
you could
crazy.
call it made in Puerto Rico.
No, I think this is the best thing about social media and having cameras and stuff, is that you could show us going in mountains and authentically seeing this versus just packaging it up and keeping it pushing.
Yeah, when you're in a coffee shop in San Juan and you're saying, why am I paying this much for a cup of coffee? If you're going to a shop that's serving Puerto Rican coffee or a shop that's serving any specialty coffee, is because there's real people who are farming the land in these crazy mountain conditions and picking those cherries by hand.
Makes sense.
And then taking those cherries and processing it, taking care of it all the way to the time where it gets roasted and ground and
I'm not gonna lie to you. I kind of took this as like, I'm gonna retire from basketball soon. And I was like, how can I find a way to still compete and represent Puerto Rico? I played represent the national team for 9 years. And I'm like, I think I could try to get in the coffee game and try to kick some ass.
Yeah.
With Puerto Rican coffee. Because all I always hear about is like, I think Colombian coffee is probably like the most common coffee I hear about. And I would love for it to be like Puerto Rican coffee.
Yeah.
Well,
we definitely have the microclimate, we have the history, we have the culture here to do it. And like I said, I don't think the goal is for us to be, we're never going to be the top producer in volume, but we can be among the best in terms of quality in the world.
Yeah, that's when that competitor nature in me comes out, man. I'm just like, ready to go to coffee expos and stuff, like, try coffee. So, no, this is fire, man. I really like this. I would love to be into farming. I don't know if I have the patience for this, because I got to play Call of Duty and stuff like that. And nothing about this says Call of Duty, bro.
Well, the harvesting, you could be competing with the guys
See?
to harvest more coffee at the end of the day, put your coffee on the scale.
So we got the most? Yeah. I feel like the rain is like giving us like the get your asses up out of here. I'm gonna give y'all an extra X amount of minutes. Yeah.
Over here is the funnel where we dump all the cherries once they're done fermenting, and the cherries get lowered down into a depulper. So we're gonna walk down. We'll check out the depulper and the dryers now. The place we're at now is called a beneficiado. So in different countries they have slightly different names for them, but in Puerto Rico, a beneficiado is the name for like a coffee processing facility. Usually it's a place where farmers go to sell their coffee. They also go, to get different types of services there, whether it be milling their coffee or whether it be buying fertilizer. All those types of things can be done at a beneficiado. So we're at a small, independent beneficiado. It's a place where we process coffee. Right now we just came from the field. The field is where the pickers go out. They go through those crazy hills, climbing those crazy hills, and they delicately, very carefully pick only the right cherries. Only the fully red, almost like burgundy, maroon type of red cherries. They pick those, they get put in your basket. I'll show you an example of the basket.
Oh, that's smooth. That's smooth.
Yeah, so pickers going through the field with a basket like this. They're picking the cherries, putting the cherries in the basket. Once it gets filled, they dump it out into a bigger bag. They go through the fields like that.
How long will they be out picking?
They'll be out all day from like 6 or 7 a.m. until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's a shift, man.
Yeah.
That view is fire right there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's fire. I just peeped that.
Once the farmers or the pickers come in from the field with the cherries, then we get to the next part, which is like the post harvest processing. For us at Bosque, we've recognized what a big role processing has in the end quality of the cup. So obviously we talked about the varieties, we talked about all the microclimate conditions, we talked about picking the coffee when it's at its peak ripeness. Those are all major factors in the end quality. But then after that, you have processing is probably the next most important influencing factor into how the end flavor of the coffee is going to be.
So all of that hard work, you can mess it up in the wrong.
Exactly. So with coffee, there's a million opportunities to screw things up. There's a bunch of different ways to make it better, but at every step of the change, you can screw up all the work that you did before.
Did you take a lot of L's, or was there a lot of? Did you have people that walked you through everything before you made the mistakes?
So it was a lot. It was a lot of trial and error. I benefited a lot from having a network of farmers, all over Latin America. Friends in Honduras and Nicaragua and Colombia that I could learn from to have a better base to start with. But definitely, we learned through trial and error and making a lot of mistakes as well.
Yeah.
And you learn quickly because every mistake you make, that you're losing money.
Yes.
So if you
if
you go through all that trouble to harvest that coffee and then you screw it all up and you can't sell it, or you have to sell it for less.
Everybody looking at you crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So traditionally, there's been two main ways to process coffee, called washed and natural. And the major difference between those two processes is a natural processed coffee, the cherry or the fruit gets left intact through the whole process.
Okay.
So whether that coffee gets fermented or goes directly to the dryers, it dries with the full skin intact, and it isn't hulled to take off that outside skin and parchment layer until it's ready to roast. With the wash process coffee, when you have the fresh cherries, before you dry it, you put it through a depulper, which we'll check out in a minute, and you take the outside skin or cascara and all the pulp off, and you let it dry, just the seed without the outside skin and pulp. Today, specialty coffee is well underway, kind of a renaissance. In the past 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of research and funding into taking really a more scientific approach to how we see coffee and how we process it, how we think of fermentation, how we think of all the different microbes and organisms and components that are in coffee and that are interacting with coffee throughout processing.
This is crazy, bro.
So
I would have never thought coffee was this technical. But
and like I said, it's exciting because we're at the very beginning. In things like wine or beer, beer's been around for over 1,000 years. Coffee has only been around for a few hundred years being cultivated, and only a few decades really being looked at more seriously the way wine or beer or other things have been looked at.
This is great.
So this is all happening kind of right now, and we're excited to be part of it. But we want Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has been behind the past 20 years. We're bringing Puerto Rico up to speed and launching ourselves into the future, being on the cutting edge with the most innovative producers around the world. So that's kind of with Bosque. That's where we ultimately determined that we have to be. If we want the industry in Puerto Rico to really survive and grow, then we need to be on the cutting edge of all these processing innovation, the cutting edge of the best coffee around the world. So that's what we're doing. So now this natural and wash process, it used to be a binary, you just do one or the other, and now it's more of a spectrum. So now there's all sorts of advanced fermentation protocols, different microbes and yeasts that you can inoculate the coffee with. You can expose it to different temperatures. You can put it in an anaerobic or an aerobic environment for different periods of time. And you can really create a much wider spectrum of flavors. Coffee that doesn't just taste like coffee. So that's what we're doing here. Over the past few years, we developed our own signature processes.
Puerto Rican type processes, or just in general?
New processes for the coffee that we're doing here in Puerto Rico. So with, for example, the coffee that you're starting with is a carbonic maceration washed coffee. And carbonic maceration, that's a term that comes from the wine industry. That's how all like champagne or sparkling wine it goes through a process called carbonic maceration. That's where it gets like the effervescence or like the bubbly, characteristic of it.
Yeah.
In coffee, we're doing similar things like that. We're using tanks. We're using different microbes.
Are y'all doing this to test
affect the flavors of coffee?
Are y'all doing this to test different tastes, or it just makes things more easier to process?
It's to create different unique flavor profiles in coffee. Yeah. Batches that we're doing right now. So these were perfectly ripe cherries when we took them out, but as you can see now, because of the process they're going through, they're getting bleached and it's taking the color off of them.
Okay.
I'm gonna have you come smell this for a second. So when we're doing small scale experiments like this, we just use these EcoTact bags. They're very like thick, high barrier bag that doesn't leach any types of microplastics.
Yeah.
From a brand called EcoTact that we work with. And we use these for fermenting on small scale experimental basis. And then once we work up to larger batches, then we have these big stainless steel tanks that hold about 3,000 pounds of cherries at a time that we use. So right now this is just like an experiment.
Does it still have that coffee smell here, or does it go through a process?
Yeah, it has to be processed.
Damn, that smells like... My grandfather used to make peach wine. It kind of has like that sitting smell. It still has like a fresh smell. It doesn't smell spoiled or anything.
Yeah, you can see these look like they're all like bleached now.
That's crazy. And this is just from the moistness in the bag.
From the fermentation, it's getting very acidic in here, and it's breaking down and stripping the pigment off of it. So you could compare these two, for example.
Y'all see that? It's crazy.
And it even makes its way to the bean inside.
So it just shelled itself?
What was that?
Did it show itself? Oh, you opened it just now.
Yeah. So see, now even like the seeds are pink now.
Wow.
Usually they're just white inside.
So this is a coffee bean right here, y'all. This is fire.
Cherries go down into this machine. For wash process coffee, again, for natural process coffee, the cherries just go straight to the dryer instead of fermenting. For wash process coffee, it goes down through this machine, and this depulper takes off the outside skin. The skin gets taken out that way, and then the seeds come down through here.
Oh, only 10? Wow.
So you can smell this over here.
Man, that's smooth, bro. That is smooth, man. I'm so excited to actually being so into coffee and how it tastes and everything, and to actually see how Olis's process is. This is mind-blowing. I can't even lie.
The fermentation.
That's crazy. I would have never known coffee, y'all, was this deep. I ain't gonna lie to you. I thought it would just pour a cup, drink, and keep it pushing, but this is like a whole different world I entered. Yeah, that's tough.
Well, I think we should probably head back now. If you want, we can make coffee. We don't have to.
Yeah, we
but
could. That'd be
can.
dope to do.
And we'll try to get you back down the mountain before it starts pouring like crazy.
All right, let's do it. Yo, I hope y'all learned something on this vlog, because I damn sure learned something. I actually learned a lot, which honestly makes me want to go even harder in this coffee space, because like I said, I like to compete, but now I feel like I'm representing something even more, so it's kind of my duty to use all this extra energy I have to put out there in the universe versus keeping it all bottled inside, you feel me? So I would have never thought I'd take this energy and put it into coffee. I thought I'd be like a street fighter or a wrestler or something, but coffee it is. Coffee it is.